Hello, hello, everyone. It's Lennon, and it's another Thoth Thursday. I have been, I guess I've been working with a Thoth. I work with a Thoth quite a bit. Okay, like it's my deck. We've bonded. And the last couple of episodes of Thoth Thursday have been like kind of what I do in my personal practice with the deck. I wanted to share a little, some little snippets of fun with you guys to kind of, I guess, separate the heavy academic side of Thoth that I like to work with and a more personal, kind of fun, kitschy side of what I do with the deck, because I do all kinds of it. And please forgive the crackling. I have a fire in the fireplace going because it is a beautiful, chilly day here. So what I've been doing lately is I've kind of been reading this tome here by Israel Regardie, The Garden of Pomegranates, Scrying on the Tree of Life. I made a scrying video, after I made the scrying video of the Thoth Tarot. I'll leave it in the cards for you if you want to go check that out. It's just me talking about how I may use, or how I have used the cards to scry, and I kind of share some journeys that I've taken. And then after I made that, I picked this back up. This tome here has so much information. When I grab resource materials, I call these resource materials, reference materials, whatever you want to call it. I grab these not in the any hope of reading it cover to cover, ever. I mean, eventually I'll have read the whole thing, but it's more of a, I'll read a couple of passages, or maybe one big paragraph. One big chapter or something like that, and something to really sink my teeth into, like a pomegranate, and go from there instead of just reading it cover to cover, like I said. So after the scrying video, I wanted to just back into the realm of the Tree of Life. I have already made a video on the Tree of Life and the tarot. I actually used the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot in that video. I'll leave that in the cards. It's a pretty long video, but I felt very good about the information that I provided in that video, and it just goes into all the cards and where they fit on the Tree of Life as like a base level. And so it's a good starting point, I believe. I always go back and reference that video if I need to. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper this time, and I'm only going to the very next level, which is the Kabbalah's 4 worlds of consciousness. I kind of laid out each suit here, and I got the majors over here, which really don't have any thing to do with the 4 worlds, the Kabbalistic 4 worlds. The major arcana have attributions with the Hebrew letters, zodiacal attributions, correspondences, and what have you. But in terms of the 4 worlds, these are 4 worlds, Kabbalistics map of consciousness and also evolution. So this is human, right? And the major arcana, the main mysteries, if you want to call it, that's part of the spirit element, part of divinity. And there's so much with the majors. We could be here all day with that kind of thing. Basically, the minor arcana, in the way the way I interpreted the info in this tome, in this book, is this being the microcosm, this being the macrocosm, this being the microcosm. And then when there was the division there between the macro and the microcosm, the Kabbalists thought, okay, well, especially if we're going off in terms of each suit specifically, like let's divide it even more. Let's give it subdivisions, really try to see if each suit would hold the mystery of evolution in a humanity type of a sense. And for reference, I'm going to put a picture of the Tree of Life as we all know it on the screen here for you, just so you'll get a reference. But the 4 worlds, they kind of sit on top of one another in kind of like a 3D diagram, and they're linked by certain separates. So I'm going to leave that picture. It's a kind of a small picture, but I hope that you're able to see it, how it's laid out in what they call space and time. Not that the world above is any better than the world below. It just goes on quality of each Sephiroth and each tree of life. Now, the Kabbalists will say that each tree of life has, we all know that has 10 Sephiroths, right? But then each Sephiroth is emanating a tree of its own. So the tree of life is emanations, like divine emanations. And we kind of have to think of the tree of life in an abstract and more of a material way than just, that's why I think that Israel Regardie sat down and wrote this, because there's so much information on the tree of life that, sure, there's, like I said, lots of information there, but then on top of the information and then outside of the information, we have to be able to meditate on the shape of the tree of life, all the four worlds, and there has to be a level of meditation there, a level of scrying there for us to be able to really like understand. Like, just like there's a difference between having wisdom and then, like having knowledge and then understanding it, just like with Hokmah and Binah. So those are the number 2 and 3 Sephiroths on the tree of life as we know it now. Now I'm going to read this. It says, the Sephirotic scheme was originally concerned with the mysteries of evolution, and the Kabbalists conceived of the evolution of the cosmos in a complex manner, by a kind of flowing forth or emanation from Ein. I'm going to put the picture of the tree of life up here for you. Above Keter, there are levels of light, divine light. Ein Sof, and Ein Sof are. And they emanate above and beyond until there's nothingness but white light. If you've ever seen Family Guy, when Brian and Stewie are in, I think it's like the multiverse episode where they're just like waiting in white light. That's kind of what I think of when I think of the light above Keter. So anyway, it was held there that there were produced in succession 4 worlds or planes of consciousness. The tree, therefore, is divided into 4 different regions of consciousness, or 4 cosmic planes in which the creative flow or pulsating stream of life proceeds. So basically, how when we look at the tree of life, we're either going down a ladder or up a ladder. I have read somewhere in another blog about the vision of Jacob's ladder and how he had this, I think it was a dream or either a vision of this great ladder that reached all the way to heaven. And it wasn't just this ladder, like the stairway to heaven. This was a channel, like a tunnel, and on this ladder that he had a vision of, he saw the angels going up to heaven and coming down like a beautiful train station almost. So I think that when I think of the tree of life, I have to think of it that way. Like, this is a continual path. Like when we're working through the tree of life and all the worlds and everything in it, involved in it, I think of it as like a path, as a train station. It's always moving, always emanating something. So that helps me too, because it's kind of like this is the life force of all of us, and the macro and the microcosm it's continually moving, the life force itself in everything. All right, now the 4 worlds. I put in a white sheet of paper here so that I can write down the names for you guys. I could put them on the screen, but I'm already sitting here with the pencil in my hand. So, the first of these 4 planes of consciousness is at Ziluth. Okay, that is the emanation. It's the archetypal world. Basically, this is the white light that I was talking about before. This is only the Sephiroth of Keter. Okay, that's it. Like when we're looking at the bare tree of life, the very top Sephiroth encompasses this whole one world, is Azuluth. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I hope I am. The second is Bria. And this is the creative world. The third is Yetzirah. formation. Let's move that out of the way. And then the last is asaya, which is action. Now, this Keter here, it says that this is the world of emanations. I'll put that there because I wrote the rest of them down. The rest of these, like Briah, is Hokmah and Banah. The world of Yitzhara has Sifrots 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So all the middle of the Tree of Life is in this formation period, which kind of makes a little bit of sense. And then the action, the only world, or the only Sifroth in this world is Malkuth. So we have one Malkuth in action and one Keter in emanation. So that's kind of cool to think about as well. The Absolute is like I said, the archetypal world. It's the absolute ideal world. It's like, for me, when I think of what would be the ideal world, that's what we want to become. We want to get to this world. When we reincarnate and our energy is just kept putting forth until finally we get life right. I guess, I mean, I'm butchering that really, but I'm putting it in like terms I can understand, is that when we finally get life right and we are able to ascend to this world, then we're not going to reincarnate anymore. Our energy is just this bare white light. And so that's why it's absolutely ideal. Now, the creative is a little bit less spiritual and abstract, because this is just like I said, white light. It's very abstract. But what we're doing here is we're taking the white light and we're going to create with it. We haven't formed anything with it, but we're going to create with the light. We're receiving the light. In the formation world, a lot is happening, again, because we're encompassing so many Sephiroths and so many like planes of consciousness here. What we're essentially doing is the ideas that we had in this, where the vessel that we had all of the light in, we've contained it. We have to actually form it into something. I love this, that Crowley depicted it this way with the crown at the top. We see that in the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot as well, but I believe that this is the act of formation right here. The clouds here are what we've just contained in the vessel. This light behind here is the light of Keter, which is this world, and we are shoving this whole world is shoving this idea from the vessel and forming something out of it. I mean, I guess that's kind of Israel Regardie in this book says, in the formative world, which is the plane of the astral forces, the ideas are projected still further, being clothed here in a design or model form of electric and magnetic matter. This is what's happening in this ace, right? Now, I'm not saying that the aces are the four worlds, okay? I'm just showing these as an example. It's all 10 of each suit that is these worlds. So just to clarify that as well. Now, to link these four worlds to the tarot, he does go into that a little bit here. The 22 trumps, like I said before, the 22 major arcanas, they attribute to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. But then each suit, the first 10 are associated with the Sifrots. Again, go check my other Tree of Life video if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you are interested. So, all 10 of each suit have a Sifrot. Keter down to Malkuth. And they have their own attributions as well. But because these are worlds of the Tree of Life, they still are relevant. So I'm going to put these under the court cards for a second. Like I said, these go on the Sephirots, all 10, not including the courts, go to the Sephirots of the Tree of Life. Still relevant here because we're talking about the Tree of Life. And I'm going to show you something cool about the court cards in just a second as well. Now we get to the court cards. The court cards are the ones that are attributed to the letters of the Tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He, and to the four worlds. So these themselves are the representations of the four worlds, if you want to call it that. So the kings would be Atzuluth. The queens would be Briah, the feminine creative, right? The princes would be formation, Yetzirah, and the princesses are Asaya, action. So that's how these are actual representations of the four worlds. So, for example, okay, this is the knight. In Crowley's deck, the kings are knights, which is perfect. But here's the knight of wands. This would be Atzuluth of Atzuluth, because it's the wand suit, which is Atzuluth, and then this court card is Atzuluth. But then the queen is Briah of Atzuluth. You kind of have to, there's so many, like, they all tie in together. So it's the same with elements, right? The fire of, this is the fire element of, the fiery element of earth. You know, this is water on water, water with fire, stuff like that. So it's the same kind of concept here, is that we look at all the kings, or knights in this case, and which one it is, which all the kings are Atzuluth, okay? But with this one, he'd be Atzuluth of water, but water is Briah. So I hope that makes sense. Now, Israel Regardie in this tome here, he does go into a little, okay, and it's explained in other works as well, especially Lon Milo Duquette's, and in the Book of Thoth, he goes a little into why he named the knights king and things like that. There's like, I think a whole little section in his book. But for some that don't know how to read Crowley, like he has a way of like forming sentences that can be like real heavy on it was heavy on the brain for me. But Israel Regardie kind of puts it into words that I could understand, and I really appreciated that. It says, in the painting of modern sets, I'm guessing of tarot cards, a number of mistakes inadvertently crept in. The king has been depicted as sitting passively on a throne. Again, we think of like the Rider-Waite-Smith. A lot of these books that explain the Thoth tarot, they kind of really do make references, and cheeky references, to the Rider-Waite-Smith. But it doesn't have to be just the Rider-Waite deck that they're talking about. This could be any other set, but it just is what it is. I always think they're being cheeky with the Rider-Waite system. It says, the king has been depicted as sitting passively on a throne, and the prince or knight is astride a horse in full gallop, actively brandishing the weapons. But in reality, the symbols should be reversed. For the king, the demiurgos in Keter, okay, because he sits in Keter and he sits in Atzuluth. That's divine emanation, right? That's just white light. Is creative and positive and transmits the stream of life to the queen, which is the suit of cups, okay? The receptive. He has to give it to her. He has to give it to the queen. This king has to give the light to the queen so that she can hold it in her vessel, right? That's the point. But he can't do that sitting passively on a throne. He has to be in action. He has to be in pursuit of giving his light to the queen. Again, I hope that makes sense. The queen is the mother, Briah, abiding patiently and passively as the work of creation goes on within her. So this is without. He's without the vessel. He has to give her the light to hold as the vessel. And then she churns it, right? Then the prince forms it. And then the princess sets it into action. Yet another clarifier. The prince, or knight, Okay, let's show you the princes here. Ooh, let's get them a little not crazy. Okay, the prince or knight in the rider system represents Yetzirah and is similar in function to the king, okay, of Azuluth, but he subsits on a much lower plane. He's receiving the ideas and the force of the father from the mother. The father gives it to the mother churns it and gives it to the son. That's what's happening here. Who imparts all the wisdom of the first three to the virginal princess. It says the names of the suit too are descriptive to a large extent of the nature of the worlds. The wands is the magical symbol of the creative will, which evolves the original archetypal ideas in Atzuluth. They are projected into Briah, the creative world symbolized by the cups. The cup obviously is a feminine symbol, passive and receptive, eager to receive the male influence from on high. Ooh, Lord. The sword relates to the formative plane of Yetzirah, since the sword cuts, forms, and hews. The pentacles being formed of action, the pentacles being formed of wax, a symbol of earth, is passive and inert, symbolize the world of action and matter, wherein the forces of the more transcendent planes have their field of manifestation. We're not manifesting until Asaya, until the princess. I like looking at the court cards this way because I like to put layers onto the tarot. And I want to stress right here that you do not have to know any of this information to read the deck. You can pick this deck up from US Games for like, what, $20, okay, and read with it. I use this for so much more than just academic, but it calls to the love of the academic in me. All the videos that I have done before this it generates my love of learning and studying and research. But I really want to stress that you do not have to know any of this. You don't have to know any of these correspondences of the Qabbalah or, anything to do with Thelema, nothing like that, to read this deck. So, just want to say that. I just like to dive into some of these juicy topics. So, that is just a very quick overview on the Kabbalistic four worlds. Oop, got out of hand here. Here I am putting the queens above the king. The Kabbalistic four worlds of consciousness, evolution, however you want to put it to be able to formulate that in your own brain. But I found this to be very interesting. Like I said, after my scrying video, I got this book back out and started reading it. There is a lot of great information in here on the Tree of Life. It does go very much in depth. It does have lots of diagrams in there for you to be able to keep up. That's really helping me, is to have the pictures in there. Pentagram, how that may have a correspondence. I haven't even gotten to the back here. Astral traveling. Ugh, I can't wait to do some of these. Lower realms of the tree. This is Malkuth. Probably there's so much to Malkuth because that's the plane we all live on. There's so much information here. I'm going to leave the link to the Amazon to get this on Amazon. It's still available. All of his books are widely available still, and he's great at condensing some of the knowledge of himself and Crowley as Crowley's old secretary. So anyway, I'm going to leave some links to some articles that I also read on top of this tome here, but because I had this in physical form, it was just real easy to thumb through the deck to get, or to thumb through this book to get the bare essentials. And if anyone has any questions on the four worlds, I can answer them to the best of my knowledge. Please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And come back in a couple of Thursdays for some more Thoth love as we dive more and more into this deck and all the information it holds. Much love.